Morning, good morning all. Roxanne King, morning Roxanne. Thank you as always for my brooms. Neil Francois, always present. Morning, sir. Yes, sir. All right, Roxanne. Let me work on that today, and hopefully by Thursday, I will play a song. I know I have it there somewhere. Paging Nicole Caesar. If you're listening, I need my sweeping time song, please. I know you would have sent it to me last time, so please resend. Arlene Lewis, morning. Maria Gani, morning. Pauline Buckmeyer, morning to you. Cyril Mejas, morning, sir. Annette Beard, Arlene Lewis, Denise Bramble, Lisa Atwater, morning, Lisa. Think for yourself. Good morning. Priscilla Holder, good morning to you. Lynette Harris, Point Kumana, Sharon, morning. Ann Niles, morning to you. G Dimple 66, morning. Daniela Williams, Jennifer Nicholas, morning to you. John Keto, Marlon Blaze, Leon Graves, morning. Annette Neptune, Rude Kester Billy, good morning to you folks. Angela Sherry, Wayne Pedro, Claire Carrington, morning Claire. So we have on Facebook. Phyllis Antoine, morning. Emmeline Harvey, morning to you. Dexter James, John Edwards, Jennifer Dorset, morning guys. Christopher Coffey, morning to you. Joy Ragunanan, morning. Deanne Charles, morning. Deanne. Chris Cragwell, morning. Will Durant, good morning to you. Good morning to His Excellency, President of Pleasantville, Nigel O'Connor. First Lady Mauricia Kagan. Let's see who else we got there. Marilyn Wanza Cloud, good morning. Laverne Brown. Salah Salam, morning, sir. Rebecca Lucas, good morning. Maureen Phillip, Constance Abigail Hercules, morning. Jennifer Ferrer, morning to you. Should we get this thing here? Henry Amsterdam, Althea, Christopher Sylvester, Mikel, morning. Marilyn McAllister, morning to you. Lennox Ramdani, morning. Darrell Nanton, morning, sir. How are you? Pamela O'Connor, Rebecca Lewis, Gemma Alexander, Janice Matthews, morning. Annette Hunt, Nadia Dixon, Sarah Richards, morning to all of you guys. Deborah Duranti. Jennifer is asking if I only watch the live on YouTube on TV, do you still get the credit? I have no idea. I'll have to look into that. Yes, Roxanne, Trump is at it again, at his best. Desperate times call for desperate measures. This U.S. elections is therapy. Looney Rodney, Judy Bowen, Vida Chapman, morning. Judy Bowen, morning, Judy. Right, so let me jump into this thing here. So much to talk about. Huh? Just when you think you catch up. Pressure. Never a dull moment with these people. Turn this on. Where to start? Right, let me start with the Shadow Minister of Finance, Mr. Dave Tanku. I don't know, like Tanku and the rest of them in the UNC suffering from a severe case of liabilities. That's all they're doing is lying. I keep telling them, if you're going to lie, make sure the truth is well hidden. But you see that strain of liabilities, there's no cure for that. Nothing can help that. Let me jump into it. So Mr. Tanku was the Lone Ranger on Sunday at their Waste of time, half a question, Sunday morning press conference, right? Every Sunday. And it was clear that this Sunday, Mr. Tanku had precious little or nothing to talk about, right? So he had to go and dig up in his bag of tricks to see what he had on the shelf, collecting dust, how much he is now to come and talk about. Desperation. Maybe they need to start, probably having this Sunday morning research time press conference every fortnight or once a month or something, have it for a little longer and talk about everything that you need to talk about, because clearly he was struggling for things to talk about. And the few things that he did talk about, if he wasn't lying, misrepresenting the truth, prevaricating the truth, giving us half the story and chinksing with the rest, as has become the norm, and you can expect that going forward. And if you looked at their waste of time Monday night forum last night, you would have realized the same thing with Munilal. I don't know if he's the shadow minister for housing, but come to talk about this development in Trestrail, he should be ashamed to mention Trestrail in his mouth. This bloody liar, when he was Minister of Housing, tell us, housing, Trestrail lands, blah, blah, blah. How much houses ready for occupation? Media going to see what houses it had, and I keep telling you all, Alura sand, Alura gravel, and tobacco. That was it. Nothing else. Building house for Ansa and Bachak. Not for people, not for human habitation. Right? So they had this situation with this contractor, Ricky Ragunanan, who built some substandard housing, and the ministry has decided to bring the contract to an end, terminate the contract, and pay him for whatever little work that he would have done, because as I understand from my reading, some of the units that he would have built are usable, but others are not. And so for those that are usable, he'd probably be compensated for that. And, any other works based on, and the rest would have to be demolished and redone, right? Some new contractor. They have some issues there with respect to, his capacity, and I think something mentioned about a performance bond or the like. But we will treat with that as that story develops, because Mr. Ragunanan said, it's in the hands of his lawyers, which is the usual typical answer for things such as these. But while Munilal had plenty to say last night on that, here we are almost 1 year later, and he is yet to address the claim made in his presence by the present leader, the present Minister of Housing, Camille Robinson Regis, with respect to $800 million in missing houses, ghost houses. Neither the housing nor the money could be found. But Munilal had nothing to say on that. He has nothing to say on that. Julie John has nothing to say on that. And Kamla Prasad-Visesa has had nothing to say on that almost a year later. I sincerely hope that during this year's budget debate, which is due in a couple of weeks, that the Minister of Housing will again raise the issue, right? Bring it to him front and center, to both of them, in fact, and ask them again. It's 1 year later and we still are waiting. Perhaps you all can assist the ministry with this. And let's see what he's going to do. Maybe he needs a reminder. He probably forget. But anyway, number 3 with Mr. Tanku here. Right? Mr. Tanku has shown that, again, he fits the bill to be a UNC representative. Number 1 criteria, you must be able to lie with impunity. And you must show that you have the propensity to be corrupt to the hilt. Listen to this liar. 2 things I'm just going to focus on. Talk for an hour and 19 minutes. Play thing 1. His misrepresentation of the correspondence between the Auditor General and the Central Bank Governor.
Report submitted by the Auditor General and laid in the House last Friday revealed that the Minister and the Ministry had again failed to execute their statutory obligation to grant Ms. Ramdas's department access to all the relevant documentation and facilities to verify the additional revenue. Now, this is extremely curious. One would believe that a minister will be anxious, if they have the documentation, the minister will be anxious to say, here, Auditor General, here's the information. Provide your audit, go through it, verify it, and then we put a tick in the box. We add the revenue stream as you are now saying that you should. Why is it so difficult to get justification so that the Auditor General can justify and reconcile the figures? Why is it that it has not been able to happen for 1 whole year? I repeat, it is common sense that any government agency, especially the Ministry of Finance and the Minister of Finance, would be anxious to ensure that the country's accounts are fully reconciled. As the Shadow Minister of Finance, I am anxious to see the reconciliation of the country's accounts by due process. It is therefore very curious as to why there appears to be no sense of urgency to ensure that the Auditor General's department has access to all the documents required to do for audit. Instead, the Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance appears to be still insistent that the Auditor General should make do with what was provided and change the figure as they demanded and as they demanded months previously. One of the audit conclusions listed on page 25 of the special report reveals that the audit team discovered that, and I quote, they discovered the breakdown in the system of internal control, together with an ineffective internal audit, along with an apparent absence of management oversight, are factors which may have contributed to the non-compliance with the legislative requirements of the Exchequer and Audit Act, Chapter 6901. The Auditor General is pointing squarely at the Ministry of Finance and saying that there are issues of concern in their management oversight practices, which is what would have resulted for the first time in our country's history in the accounts not being able to be fully ventilated, fully audited, and fully verified. For the first time in our history.
For the first time in our history, I wonder why that is. So these management oversight issues, they only came about in 2023. Dave? So everything was perfect in 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, going all the way back. They had no management issues. I'm sure it's more or less the same people working there. So overnight, the management team at the Ministry of Finance became slack. Is it that these management issues, the Vendranath, popped up overnight? I'm just asking you that question, since you want to ascribe that. But again, as I said on Sunday, this is just a case of the Auditor General playing smart with foolishness. Foolishness. Trying all how to drag this thing out unnecessarily. All kind of little foolish thing you pull in here and whatnot, and management issues and stuff. Really? But you were prepared to put through the accounts without this? How? And then what she needs to tell us is how you all did not discover these issues. This 2.6 billion. How come your department didn't discover that? Even in the face of attempts being made by officers of the Ministry of Finance prior to the submission. When they said she wasn't responding to emails, wasn't taking calls, and all of these different things. But anyway, we continue.
On the calm fingers. This is the Auditor General, ladies and gentlemen, warning the ministry that there were still major issues in their processes which needed to be corrected. This is equivalent to a whistleblower telling the government these are problems, and instead of the government, which passed whistleblowing legislation under the pretense that they wanted people to signal where problems were, instead of telling the Auditor General, thank you very much, these are how we are going to resolve those problems, the Minister of Finance chose the Parliament to again, last Friday, go after the office of the Auditor General and the person of the Auditor General. The special report also revealed that the Ministry of Finance had advised the Auditor General that the source of the discrepancy of the additional 2.6 billion in revenue originated in the electronic check clearing system and the Go Anywhere platforms of the central bank. So the audit told them, ladies and gentlemen, where the missing money was supposed to have come, what the problem was. Obviously then, the Auditor General proceeded to write to the central bank for an urgent meeting with the governor to conduct what is called a walkthrough of the platforms to provide the auditors with an understanding of the entity's internal controls, their systems, and specifically application controls responsible for assuring data confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The Auditor General's Department would have even identified the specific processes by which this walkthrough would have been executed. Amazingly, the governor of the central bank, in a one-line response to the Auditor General's request, stated, "The Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago is unable to accommodate your request." That is all. As a result of those 13 words uttered by Governor Hilaire, the country's accounts are 1 year later unable to be closed because $2.6 billion in revenue cannot be confirmed because the government has not provided the information that is required for the Auditor General to clear the accounts. Now, it is completely impossible. It is completely impossible that the governor was unaware of the audit crisis which the ministry had found itself in. It is completely unaware. It must be. The governor, the country was fully cognizant of this financial crisis. This was in the public domain. The governor of the central bank would have been fully aware that the cause of the misstatement originated from the central bank, and therefore the Auditor General would have been knocking at his door to be able to fulfill her professional audit mandate. I call today on the governor of the central bank to break his silence and tell this country exactly why he refused to facilitate the Auditor General's request for a meeting to discuss these issues. To compound this comedy of errors, ladies and gentlemen, by the government, the Minister of Finance on Friday in the House of Representatives, while chastising the Auditor General as being responsible for this significant fiscal and audit crisis, then tells the country that Friday, having refused to meet with the Auditor General on her request months before, but by Friday, the governor of the central bank was now willing to meet with the Auditor General. You can't make this up. When the Auditor General wrote requesting a formal meeting, the governor of the central bank refused. Had that meeting taken place, had that meeting had occurred, ladies and gentlemen, we would not be in the fiscal audit crisis that we are in now. For those of you who may not know, the Minister of Finance is responsible for the control and management of the entire financial resources and affairs of this country. This whole fiscal financial fiasco stems from the arrogant and egotistical conduct of the minister, further worsened by the involvement of the Attorney General and the attempt to use strong-arm tactics.
Right. So you heard what he said there, right? That the Auditor General was knocking at the door of the central bank governor. She wrote to the central bank requesting access to the check clearing system. And the central bank governor responded with a one-liner that the central bank is unable to accede to the request. Let me get this here. Let me read this again for you. You heard what he said was a one-liner. And he's calling on the central bank governor to break his silence and tell the country why he denied access. Dave Tanku has demonstrated. You see, these people, they're dangerous. Dangerous. Let me read it again for those of you who might have forgotten. Let me get it here. I read it on Sunday, but it is worth repeating because contrary to what he just said there about the minister coming to the house on Friday and whatnot and stuff, let me get it here. It claims that ministry is supposed to provide the documents and the documents wouldn't have. All right, let's go. Special report does not assist. All right, now I don't want to read from there. This is, again, and I'm reading here from Colmembert's press release that he sent out last week, Monday. Last week, Monday, right? This is before he came to the House on Friday. So I am certain that this statement was in the public domain. So in the same way, Tanku just telling you, well, it is impossible that the central bank governor didn't know about what was happening and whatnot, because the whole country was aware. I am absolutely certain that this statement, Dave Tanku is aware of it. I am certain he would have read it, because the minister didn't put this in some silo. He didn't put it under a bush. This is not an internal circular that he put out for only PNMIs. This is sent to all media houses. It was circulated across social media for all and sundry to read and digest. It was sent to the media houses so that they could have it read on their evening news, take out what they wish, and read it in their nightly newscasts, so that they could put it on their social media pages, so that all and sundry could read and digest. It was sent out to the radio station so that they could make mention of it in their various newscasts throughout the day, which means the central bank governor would have heard the contents. Well, as I understand, based on last night's news, that the Auditor General is on vacation still and she's out of the country. She can't answer no question unless it's coming from, right? But I want to ask Tanku, who told you that the central bank governor issued a one-liner? Because the only pieces of correspondence, as far as I'm aware, that is in the public domain speaking to this correspondence between the Auditor General and the central bank comes from what was reported in the Express, extracts taken from the affidavit of the Auditor General, and this press release that Mr. Imwood put out. Those are the only two. The only two, as far as I am aware, that speaks to that. So unless it is that you talking to Jaiwanti and she tell you that she got a one-liner, I would like you need to tell us where you got that information from, because what is in the public domain is totally different from what he just said, that there was a one-liner. Let me just read it again. This is Mr. Imwood's press release. When I saw that Sunday Express article, I asked the governor of the central bank for his comments. The governor has informed me that following an email request made on June 24, 2024. So unlike Mr. Tanku, Mr. Imwood worked with his receipts. So he gave you a date. Tanku ain't give you no date. He just come and give you this nebulous statement and telling you that the Auditor General wrote earlier on in the year to the central bank governor, and the governor responded with a one-liner. Really? All right. The governor has informed me that following an email request made on June 24, 2024 by an official in the Auditor General's department, not the Auditor General, to examine the bank's electronic check clearing system and its Go Anywhere platform, the central bank, requested official correspondence from the Auditor General with an outline of the scope of the potential engagement. So you heard Tanku say the Auditor General's department provided that. How did they provide that? How did they provide that? They sent in a request. Okay? So they just decided, yeah, we'll just send the scope. You send the scope, but you ain't send nothing else, right? So he told us that. He admitted that the scope was provided. As the central bank governor is saying here, based on what Mr. Imwood is stating. And I continue. It requested official correspondence from the Auditor General with an outline of the scope of the potential engagement. The central bank also indicated that it was open and willing to meet with the Auditor General on the matter at any mutually convenient time. I am advised that to date, while it has received an outline of the scope of the proposed examination from a subordinate in the Auditor General's department, Tanku just told you that the scope was sent. The bank has not yet received any correspondence from the Auditor General delegating authority to her staff to act on her behalf in this matter, nor has it received a proposed time or date for the earlier requested meeting between the Auditor General and the governor. As such, the bank was unable to accommodate the request. So Tanku didn't see that part. It has been over a week since Mr. Imwood put out this statement. It has been over a week since this statement has been in the public domain. For Jaiwanti to read, for the central bank governor to read, and for the rest of Trinidad and Tobago to read. So if anything inside here is incorrect, and if it is that what the central bank governor relayed to the minister is untrue with respect to that correspondence, I am certain Jaiwanti Ramdas would have read that. Has she put out any statement stating that that is not true? Has she? No. Has she refuted anything here? No, she hasn't. Has the central bank governor come out and say this is not true? And I am certain that Mr. Imbut would have, during the course of that conversation, indicated to the central bank governor that he intends to put out a press release and he will be quoting what he was told by the central bank governor. So the central bank governor is not going to be caught unawares. He was made, I'm certain Mr. Imbut would have let him know this is not what you just told me here is not going to remain in confidence between us, right? Because I need to put out a statement to correct the record. So I'm letting you know, I'm going to put out a press statement and I'm going to quote exactly what you told me. So if it is what Mr. Imbut has here is a lie, the central bank governor would have refuted that because he don't want to get blamed, as is happening now, where agents of the UNC, whether it be from the political leader, the shadow MP, or the shadow minister for finance, or whoever else, seeking to bring his office into disrepute by claiming that he denied access. He rejected the request of the Auditor General to do her job. But then you have Karen Nunes Teixeira, who is the deputy political leader of Hope, interviewed last week on one of the radio stations saying, but that is not her job. That the Minister of Finance sent the Auditor General to the central bank to go and look at the system. But that is not her job. Because if you are in the Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance, if you have what it is, you call it, a receivable and a debit, you're supposed to have the documents there for the auditors to examine. So that is not the Auditor General's job to go to the central bank to examine anything. But this is a former Minister of Finance telling you that that is not the job of the Auditor General. Mr. Imbut didn't send the Auditor General there. She, of her own volition, decided that she wanted to do that. She made her request because she playing Doubting Thomas. Because her auditors went to the Ministry of Finance over the course of the last 4 months. The documentation would have been provided to them. According to Mr. Imbut's press release, they were satisfied at the exit meeting that took place on the 22nd of July. The auditors from the Auditor General's department would have told the staff of the Ministry of Finance, we are satisfied based on what we saw that the 2.6 billion was properly accounted for. So as far as they're concerned, case closed. But the boss, she don't think so. So she playing Doubting Thomas. She need to see, she's not taking the word of any of the disciples who say they see Jesus. She want to see for herself. And even when he appeared before her, she said, nah, I want to stick my finger in the wound and I want to see for myself. And I still had doubts too, you know. Yeah, that is what she doing. So when Ms. Nunes Teixeira want to put in your 2 pence and talking rubbish or the minister could direct the Auditor General to do anything. The documentation is in the Ministry of Finance, but she not willing to accept that. She going the full gamut. She digging in her heels. So when Tanku come to misrepresent the truth and talk this pack of garbage about the central bank governor give a one-liner response that the central bank is unable to accommodate the request. Damn blasted liar. At no point in time did he reference Mr. Imbut's statement, which gave the full context and gave us dates and all. I'm going to give you that. And his lion leader came last night and do the very same thing, trying to bring the not only the office, but the central bank governor into disrepute. Putting things out there to give people the impression that the central bank governor somehow in cahoots with the Minister of Finance to cook the books and to cover up, and maybe that's why he don't want the Auditor General. But last night on CNC3, I don't normally look at any other news publication, but last night on CNC3, it said that the Auditor General and the Central Bank have agreed to meet. But no mention of the Auditor General denying what Mr. Imbut said. Right? And you see, no, if you don't read it. So Imbut could come there and tell you nonsense. Scope of the engagement was provided. But even in the face of that, they were denied. What about the other request? Who requested the scope? Tanku. Who requested it? Why don't call on the Auditor General to produce the first email, produce the transcripts of the first email that she sent, and let us see if in that first email any scope was sent? Why don't you call on the Auditor General to provide us with the email thread from the time she sent the email to the response and what happened after that? Why you don't call on the Auditor General? No, but you're calling on the central bank governor to break his silence on why he denied the request. No, if Jayanti is claiming that she was denied access and she sent an email, she needs produce that. Why didn't she include that as part of the transcripts for her affidavit to support her claim that she was denied the request? And since UNC is so good at getting documentation, some of which is you're not even supposed to have access to under the Freedom of Information Act, why don't file a Freedom of Information request for those email transcripts so you could prove that, and then come on your Monday night forum and do like Kamala loves to do, put it up on the big screen and show us the one-liner. You know why? Oleg can't do that because you're a damn blasted liar. That is what he is. Fooling people, but of course, you have gullible people out there who will take that and run with it. Ask the media. They put big and bold on our front page. Central Bank denied me access. Why they didn't put Mr. Imbert's response as a front page? Why didn't put that? Why didn't put something like Central Bank still awaiting Auditor General's response? Or still awaiting requested information? Why didn't put that? You know what? We didn't put in that. Because we need to continue the narrative that the Minister of Finance and the Central Bank Governor, that they are the bad actors in this whole thing. And the Auditor General, she's an angel. She's a hero, a national hero standing up for the citizens of this country. So the media too is complicit in this foolishness and dragging out this nonsense because they're desperate to create and to continue this soap opera. That is what it has become. But anyway, in the interest of time, let me move on, because that's not the only thing that clown said on Sunday.
Including pre-action protocol letter and direct phone calls by the Minister of Finance to coerce the Auditor General to breach her fiduciary duties and to... That's what the law prevents them from doing. From moving their profits, from claiming... Law designed to put in place measures to prevent tax evasion by international entities. This is a laudable objective in itself. When a company engages in tax evasion, it robs the country of revenue that is desperately needed at this time. I have no idea of how much money we lost as a result of not having put these measures in place to prevent tax evasion, but I'm certain that the figure is astronomical, in the millions and possibly and most likely in the billions of dollars over the last decade. In any case, any additional revenue is welcome.
Let me pull it back a little.
Dealing with the accountability, transparency, and integrity I want to repeat that for emphasis. It is important to know that two major financial institutions dealing with the accountability, transparency, and integrity of the financial system of Trinidad and Tobago are highlighting substantial shortcomings within the Ministry of Finance and in the receipt and use of taxpayers' dollars. And still, the Minister of Finance has not acted. Still, he continues to blame everybody else except that one person who is directly responsible, Kong Imbul, the Minister of Finance. I also told you earlier in my introduction that I would show you how dereliction of duty by the Minister of Finance and his colleagues has cost this country billions per year. Well, let me share these facts with you. On Friday, the Minister of Finance piloted the Global Forum Bill, an omnibus piece of legislation comprising 199 odd pages. It has taken this government almost 10 years to bring this law. A law designed to put in place measures to prevent tax evasion by international entities. This is a laudable objective in itself. When a company engages in tax evasion, it robs the country of revenue that is desperately needed at this time. I have no idea of how much money we lost as a result of not having put these measures in place to prevent tax evasion, but I'm certain that the figure is astronomical.
Of course, the figure is astronomical, Dave. Do you recall, Dave, and I'm sure you've heard it, David Abdullah, who was at one point in time a part of the People's Partnership in the early days, before he realized the level of corruption taking place and he decided to make his exit, right? David Abdullah is on record as having said on numerous occasions that he would have had a conversation with a former People's Partnership Minister of Finance. There were only two. Forward Winston Dukaran and then the $11.625 million man. Right? The man who they paid $11.625 million to leave working for Citizens Bank to become the Minister of Finance. So we can narrow it down. Right? Abdullah is on record as having said he had a conversation with one of these two men who informed him that based on their research and their information, that Trinidad and Tobago loses at least $7.5 billion a year through tax evasion. Right? The government loses over $7.5 billion a year in revenue through tax evasion. And when Mr. Abdullah asked him, so why don't you all fix the problem? Why don't you go after the perpetrators? And the response was, we can't do that because it's our people doing it. Right? That's what Abdullah said. He's on a record as having said that. As I said before, the last time when I sat in a studio with Mr. Abdullah, which I believe was for the budget debate, I believe it was. I-95.5's post-budget debate, myself, Mr. Abdullah, I think Mariano Brown. And I drew to his attention. I reminded him of that statement, and he confirmed it. So when Dave telling us about he doesn't know and the figure is astronomical, go and have a chat with Mr. Abdullah now, and maybe he could direct you to which of the two ministers of finance who served under Kamla Prasad told him that. And since that person knows who the perpetrators are and said they couldn't go after the people because it's all your people, go and talk to them.
In the millions and possibly and most likely in the billions of dollars over the last decade. In any case, any additional revenue is welcome, especially given this government's failure to create an enabling environment for investment and to stimulate new industries and revenue streams. But it's not just this piece of legislation. Earlier this year, the base erosion and profit sharing legislation was finally brought to the Parliament and passed after almost a decade of being pursued by every other country seeking to prevent revenue loss. That law, the BEPS law, deals with transfer pricing and basically is designed to prevent transnational businesses like global corporations, including energy companies, from diverting profits from high tax areas to low tax areas. That's what the law prevents them from doing. From moving their profits, from claiming their profits from where it is high tax value to where it is low tax value. In this case, however, in this particular case, we are able to quantify how much this failure of the government and the minister and the Attorney General and the former Attorney General, we are able to quantify how much money it has cost you, taxpayers, and this country. There was a study which provided a firm, fixed estimate of how much money was lost by Trinidad and Tobago in the natural gas sector alone in 1 year. This study, ladies and gentlemen, entitled Navigating Transfer Price Risk in the Oil and Gas Sector, Essential Elements of a Policy Framework for Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana. This study was published in 2021. This is what it says. This is what this study says on pages 42 to 43. And
So this study was published in 2021, but he suddenly found it. Suddenly found it, right? See, when I tell you they have nothing to talk about. So when they call him and say, Dave, you doing this Sunday morning, waste that time, 1.5 question press conference? You able? Yeah. Well, you see, when they hang up before they scratching here, what they talk about, boy? What they talk about? Let me see. Let me go and look and see. Hey, yeah, all right, let me talk about this. This report that was published 3 years ago. I know I had that up on the shelf for a good reason. In case they ask me, I could pull that out of my bag of tricks. Listen.
In 2018, while prices were low, this is natural gas prices, the government would have received or could have received revenue that approximately was 6 times higher than actual receipts, amounted to an estimated US $2.6 billion in revenue loss from the natural gas sector alone. Let me translate that to you, ladies and gentlemen. What that means is that if this BEPS legislation had been put in place, the government would have been able to get 6 times more than it was actually receiving from companies that were engaging in transfer pricing. An estimated $2.6 billion in revenue loss, US hard currency, US currency, which we also need in this country. An estimated $2.6 billion in revenue loss from the natural gas sector alone. And we have countless other sectors which are also in which international companies, multinationals are also present. That is more than $17 billion in TT currency in 1 year. In 2018, revenue lost to this country, revenue lost to taxpayers of this country because a minister who simply refuses to put the protection mechanism in place, simply refuses to see the country's public purse as his priority. But let me put that into perspective, ladies and gentlemen.
So I'm just going to play a couple more minutes, so bear with me. I know it's difficult to listen to these clowns, but I want to demonstrate to you all the hypocrisy. And further to that, why it is when they make statements like this, it is important to expose them as the hypocrites and liars that they are, right? Because all of their Facebook profiles that kick out the PNM and so on will take this and run with it. And you will hear the fully dunce parroting this nonsense. Where the 2.6 billion 2018, can't go talk about that, the 2.6 billion, where that went? You know, that's a favorite figure now, 2.6. Well, this is 2.6 billion USD talking about here. So just bear with me for a few more minutes.
The total revenue for fiscal year 2018 was 43 billion. That was the government's total revenue for fiscal 2018. Total revenue. This estimates by this study, this estimate suggests that in one sector and in one sector alone, the natural gas sector, in this one sector, the revenue loss was 17 billion. Think about that. 43 billion is what the government actually received, but 17 billion more is what they did not get. And they did not get that because the Minister of Finance, his Attorney General, and the former Attorney General simply did not put the required legislation that they knew for decades, for an entire decade, they did not put the legislation in place. Now, it is a normal thing for governments to cry that their revenue streams have collapsed. This is why our revenue streams have collapsed, because of the incompetence of the Minister of Finance. This is why government revenue should have been 40% higher than it was in 2018. All he had to do was follow the base documentation and implement it here. That is all he was required to do. Instead, the Minister of Finance chose to ignore $17 billion plus, refusing to collect it, and chose instead to borrow money, to borrow billions, indebting future generations, cutting social spending, spending less on what was required and requested by the police service, the prison service, the ministries of education, health, transportation, and infrastructure, etc., ladies and gentlemen. Instead of taking the money that is legitimately due to Trinidad and Tobago, all you have to do is pass the legislation. I sometimes wonder why a government would do that. When we check and see who the institutions are, who the organizations are that are involved in the provision, in the sourcing of loans, I think we'll see some very young characters involved, ladies and gentlemen. That is probably why this government chose to borrow instead of accessing the resources that were legitimately due to this country.
So his logic is that is $2.6 billion that was lost through transfer pricing, right? That the reason why the minister didn't enact the legislation and so on, and to get this 17 billion in 2018, in 2024, so he gone back 6 years, was because they wanted to borrow money from NCB Merchant Bank, where Stuart Young's brother is an executive. They don't own the bank, but that is his logic. Probably logic of his leader too, because they are a party of conspiracy theories. That's all they do. Like they sit down every week, we have a conspiracy. You know how some people, they have Bible study, but they have conspiracy study. Yes, we meet on Tuesday and Thursday night to see what conspiracies we could come up. So come with your best conspiracies, right? And we will trade and we will discuss and we will fine-tune the conspiracies and decide who will come and push it. So any leader, when she does show up and when she's sober and she hear one that she really, really likes, she says, I will take that one, right? So leave that for me for Monday night, right? I continue, just a couple of minutes more, please, bear with me.
Between 2016 to date, ladies and gentlemen, today, 15th of September, 2024, between 2016 to today, an estimated $157 billion, if we have to extrapolate this figure, $157 billion from natural gas alone should have been in the treasury. That is more than the combined deficit of this country for 2 decades. More than the combined deficit. We would not have had to go into deficit. We would not have had to borrow the kind of money that this government has been borrowing, ladies and gentlemen. All they had to do, all the Minister of Finance had to do, was implement the legislation, and they would draft legislative agendas available to him. He refused to, costing you taxpayers billions of dollars. All he had to do, ladies and gentlemen, was pass the legislation and collect the money and use it for the welfare of Trinidad and Tobago. But that could not have happened because we have a Minister of Finance who simply does not see the priority in executing this legislation. Would you believe that despite passing the BEPS legislation last year, to date the legislation has not been proclaimed? To date, it remains unused, gathering dust. $17 billion per year from one sector lost to taxpayers every year, including 2023-2024 fiscal year, because of the negligence of this Minister of Finance. Why would a minister, knowing that he could access billions, knowing that the country needs it, why would he sit on his hands and do nothing? Is he protecting some multinational company, or is he promoting the interests of a private company that is involved in sourcing and generating these debts, generating loans to the government? Only the minister can explain. What is clear, ladies and gentlemen, is that this is negligence. This is billions of dollars lost to taxpayers that will never come back. It is negligence and perhaps even criminal negligence, and somebody must be held into account. And I hold the Minister of Finance totally accountable for this fiasco. This is not Dave Tanku and the opposition saying this, ladies and gentlemen. This is an international study that was done, published internationally, and has not been disputed from 2021 to date when we are raising. It has not been disputed by the Ministry of Finance. $17 billion thrown away because of the constant ignorance and refusal of the Minister of Finance to simply bring legislation to the Parliament, pass it, and implement it. I want to listen.
Right. He is an economist, right? So he went to university, I suppose, and hopefully it was a legitimate university. And he studied economics. And so on that basis, Kamala felt that, yes, we should put Dave as the shadow Minister of Finance because he understands. If you've ever heard Dave Tanku try to talk economics in the Parliament, I am sure there are 4 students studying economics who could do a better job than this clown. So he tells you this report, this ECLAC report says that in 2018, we lost $17 billion based on transfer pricing. And therefore, based on his extrapolation, so he figure, Well, every year since then, we're losing 17 billion. So we lose 17. So he just multiplies 17 by the number of years in 2018 to now, and he come and tell you 150 something billion dollars has been lost based on if we do extrapolation. He's an economist. I am no economist, right? Yeah, my background is in finance. I didn't study economics. I did it at secondary school, and I got my distinction in it and so on. But anyway, he have a degree in economics. But obviously, the 2.6 billion, Mr. Tanku, in 2018 would have been tied to the amount of natural gas that we sold, Mr. Tanku, and what the price of natural gas would have been in 2018, Mr. Tanku, and that is why you would have had 2.6 billion. But we know, Mr. Tanku, between 2018 to now, the amount of gas that we have been producing has been declining, Mr. Tanku, and the price of gas has been falling. So it would not be the same 17 billion every year, Mr. Tanku. It cannot be, because there are variables. The price and the amount of gas that we have been selling is not static. So it can't be, you cannot just do, he doing simple interest, right? He don't know about compound interest and so on. He doing simple interest. To come and tell you, well, the report says we lose 17 billion in 2018. So based on that, we will assume that it's 17 billion every year. Right? But the fundamentals, price and amount, he didn't take that into consideration. And coming to tell you, and of course, the fully dunce will run with it. And he's an economist. He has a degree. He has a certificate that says he was awarded a degree in economics. And that is the man Kamala Prasad Bisesa wants to put, possibly, as a Minister of Finance. He is the only person she could appoint the shadow. Can't remember? And there's basic things that he can't understand. But I'm not going to end there, Let's go again. Let me show you the hypocrisy of these liars. The very same report that he read there to tell you about 2018 spoke about 2011 to 2014, rather 2010 to 2014, and what the situation was with respect to the same transfer pricing. But apparently, he bus. He didn't see that, right? So and a little bit of research that I did, just seeing that, right? And this was brought to my attention. I don't normally watch this foolishness, right? But it was drawn to my attention. And yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna read this for you. Office of the Prime Minister. This is let me see. Yes. Now, first of all, I want to mention, you see what he just talked about there? CNC3 spoke about that same report and highlight the very same thing that he spoke about. CNC3 highlighted that since the 10th of March 2021. Since the 10th of March, so 3.5 years ago, CNC3 spoke about it on the evening news. I think on the Business Watch feature. Right? So he 3.5 years late. But as I told you, that's just something that he had on a shelf. Colecan does something, and he was desperate for things to talk about, and he said, let me pull out this, because it's like, aha. No, that is aha for the fully dance, not for the rest of us, Mr. Tanko. And if you could pull wool over our eyes, are we telling you 2.6 billion? And that is negligence and criminal negligence. And this is dereliction of duty. And the minister is supposed to pay for this, and somebody had to answer for this. And if it is that the minister had passed the law, we would have been able to get the revenue, and we wouldn't need to borrow, and all the conspiracy theories wouldn't need to borrow. Let me read this for you. 11th of June 2019, this is a statement that was issued by Franklin Kahn, then Minister of Energy. Update on government strengthening of the energy sector. Let me read it for you. Madam Speaker, I have been authorized by Cabinet to make the following statement to this Honorable House and to thank you for the opportunity so to do. Madam Speaker, as has been previously outlined on numerous occasions, the country's energy sector in September 2015 was not in a good place. There had been neglect on the gas contracts on both the upstream and the downstream sides, and the country faced billions of dollars in claims and significant shortfalls of gas supply. In March 2018, the government held the first public account of the energy sector of Trinidad and Tobago titled Spotlight on Energy 2018. The objective was to provide the people of Trinidad and Tobago, the resource owners, with an account of the state of the sector and the plans for the future. Listen carefully here, and the plans for the future. Madam Speaker, it is important to note that the main criticism to the Spotlight on Energy came from the opposition UNC and certain members of the Energy Chamber. Both the UNC and members of the Energy Chamber accused the government of being anti-investment and pursuing action that would constitute a violation of the sanctity of contracts executed with the international oil companies. The suggestion was that the revelations at the spotlight would result in the multinational oil companies declining to further invest in Trinidad and Tobago. This suggestion was not surprising and it was uninformed. The government, immediately upon assuming office in late 2015, had been working assiduously on the energy sector, and in particular the relationship between international players in the sector. Under the leadership of the Prime Minister, we had been building the platform of mutual respect and an ability to sit in the same room as equals with these sophisticated multinational companies. The spotlight was held against a backdrop of an inadequate economic return. Here they said this is what Tanku was talking about. The spotlight was held against a backdrop of an inadequate economic return from the exploitation of our natural gas resources. The stark reality of revenue foregone, particularly from LNG, was revealed in the gas master plan produced by UK consultants, Poten and Partners. Here this part. Poten and Partners in the gas master plan advised that it was arguable that Trinidad and Tobago had been denied the full benefits of the revenue entitlements. They deduced that the commercial and contractual structures of the Atlantic LNG trains had been such that little of the benefit from the high global LNG prices had flowed back to the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and therefore the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago in the period under review of 2010 to 2014. Here it is. Poten estimated that the country lost up to $6 billion annually from transfer pricing practices during the period 2010 to 2014. Let me repeat that. Poten estimated that the country lost up to $6 billion, not the 2.6 that he talking about 2018 that is so egregious, and this is criminal negligence and dereliction of duty, and the minister must answer, and this government this and this government that. Under Kamla Prasad Bisesa and Carolyn C. Prasad Bechan in the first instance, and then Kevin Ramnarayan, who's the best thing in energy, according to Poten and Partners in this master gas plan or gas master plan, whatever it is, between 2010 to 2014, under the same transfer pricing issue, we were losing $6 billion a year. So he's telling you about 17 billion TT in 2018, but according to this, we were losing about 40 billion TT dollars a year under Kamla Prasad Bisesa. But you know, under them, less is more and more is less. So 2.6 billion, 17 billion TT is more than 40. And the 40 we were losing a year, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. I wonder if you extrapolate that. Multiply 40 by 6 or 40 by 5, Dave, and tell us how much is that. So when that was happening, where were you, Dave? Under a rock? Or were you playing Rip Van Winkle? You were asleep for 20 years. You didn't know about transfer pricing then, Dave. So when we were losing 40 billion a year, according to Poten and Partners, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, Dave, that wasn't of concern. Maybe if it is you all had passed the legislation then, Dave, you all wouldn't have had to put the exchequer account $23 billion in permanent overdraft, Dave. Maybe you all wouldn't have had to rape NGC, Dave. Maybe you all wouldn't have had to borrow money from the Chinese to build the Cuba Hospital, to build the National Aquatic Center, to build the cycling velodrome and the racket center, Dave. Maybe if it is you all had passed legislation then and we were able to capture that extra $40 billion a year, Dave, that money could have gone into the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, Dave. And you know how much money we could have been at, that fund could have been at today, Dave? But you come to talk about 2018 and 2.6 billion US and 17 billion and this minister and this government and dereliction of duty. And maybe the reason why the minister don't want to pass the legislation and so on is because they want to take loans from Stuart Young Brother Company. So what was the excuse between 2010 to 2014, Dave, when it was 6 billion US that we were losing? How it come from 6 billion down to 2.6, Mr. Economist? Explain that now. You know why? Because LNG prices were high then, Dave. And back then we were producing about 4.5 billion scuffs per day, Dave, instead of what we are down to today, which is about 2.5. So you see, when you do your extrapolation from 2018 to now, Dave, to arrive at a constant 17 billion a year, you're talking rubbish. But you're bright, you're an economist. And you have a degree, you have letters after your name. Your call card said, you have a BSc, you have a master's too. Then, damn blasted liar. But he wouldn't tell you what this administration has done. Stuart Young started under Franklin Kahn and Dr. Rowley and continued under Stuart Young. And even Stuart Young was a part of those negotiations when Franklin Kahn was Minister of Energy, right? Which made Stuart Young the ideal person to be his replacement after he passed, unfortunately, right? But Franklin Kahn have been doing his thing. And the government now would have gone and done renegotiations with these upstream companies and these multinational energy corporations, so that we could get better prices, which we are realizing today. So even without the legislation, the government would have gone and sat down with the BP and the Shell and whoever, when Dr. Rowley making all these trips that they're complaining about, and Rowley spending how much money to travel, and what benefits the country getting. Those are the benefits the country is getting. So even without the legislation, Dr. Rowley would have gone with Stuart Young and they sat down with these multinationals and let them know, here what. You see what's taking place here? We are aware of transfer pricing. We know what it is all you're doing. We're not having it because you're exploiting our natural resources, which is finite. And when it finishes and all you pack up and gone, we have to suffer. So we need to make sure we get as much as we can out of it now, before that happens, so that if and when it dries up and all you leave, we make sure that we have a buffer that we can rely on until such time as we can diversify the economy sufficiently away from oil and natural gas. That is what your government does. So when he comes to tell you about extrapolation and we lose it, he wouldn't tell you about those negotiations. But I played for you all the clip last week where Valmiki Arjun, economist, the real economist, Valmiki Arjun, would have spoken on CNC3 and told us about the enhanced revenues that the government would have gotten as a result of those negotiations with the multinational energy corporations. So this transfer pricing thing, so the prices that you see, as Stuart Young would have told us, that we see on the nightly news, Henry Hub and so on, is not the prices that we get, because they would have had a basket of prices that they use to get a weighted average. That is what the country benefits from, which is why in the first 9 months of this year, we were able to get higher energy revenues as a result of that. But Dave, he don't know about that. Or maybe he knows. But you see, willful deceit and deception, that's what they like. And he will come and tell the population that and read from this ECLAC report. But wouldn't tell you the same blasted report told us, the same thing that Putin and partners told us, that when they were in office 2010 to 2015, we were losing a hell of a lot more than the 2.6 billion that he identified in 2018. You see why they can't be trusted? But put him back. He's the shadow minister of finance. And using deceit and lies, half-truths, in order for them to make a case to get back into office. I can read further on that, because I have much more. Maybe in another day I'll revisit, where Mr. Khan goes into details to tell you what the government did in order to be able to get better prices for our natural gas. And when it is, gas starts to flow from Dragon and Manatee and Coquina, Mannequin and Coconut and Ginger and all of these fields, 2027. Understand, we will be getting much better prices. Thanks to who? Not Kevin Ramnarai, not Kamla Prasad-Bissessar. Thanks to Stuart Young and Keith Rowley in the main. So understand the assignment for 2025. That the kind of money that we could be getting, and it would be egregious, right? A dereliction of duty on the part of you, the right-thinking citizens, to make the mistake to allow these people to come into office, and not by voting for them. Because if you choose not to vote, you give them the opportunity to get in by proxy. We're not going through that. They don't deserve to have that kind of money in their hands. They don't deserve to benefit from all of the hard work that Stuart Young has done and continues to do to secure this country's energy future. And we're not talking about 5 years, 10 years. Back then, years ago, we used to hear about the Ryder Scott report. Every time the diversification conversation is to come up, and in earnest, and then we get the Ryder Scott report that says, well, we have 10 more years of gas or 10 more years of oil, and then that conversation used to be shelved because, hey, we have oil and we have gas, so we're good to go. Long time I hear about Ryder Scott, right? But understand, you have a choice to make come 2025. And it would be a sin to allow these people, Because make no mistake, all how they bad talking Maduro and all of that. They're licking their chops and doing the maths as to how much money they will get to play with and how much they could thief. And all who lining up, who want to be in charge of this corporation and who want to be in charge of that one and who want to be on this board and who wants to be ambassador and high commissioner and all of these different things. Yes, everybody done jostling for position already. But just based on this piece of deceit that Dave Tanku just gave already, I felt it necessary to speak on that. But anyway, I think we'll get into it. Right? So when you want to come and when you see them talking this 2.6 billion nonsense US that we lost 17 billion transfer price in 2017, remind them we were losing 40 billion under them from 2010 to 2014. And we don't deal in Kamlamatics, right? And Devonomics. Under Kamlamatics and Devonomics, 17 billion is more than 40. But for those of us who deal in mathematics and economics, we know 40 billion a year lost in transfer pricing is plenty more. And ask them all the things they could have do. How many more hospitals they could have built? Maybe if it is they had passed the legislation and we had gotten that extra $200 and some billion, the government today would have had money to pave a road and fix all the schools instead of inheriting a debt of $3 billion from the People's Partnership to have to fix schools and complete schools. Maybe if they had passed the same legislation that he's talking about back then, yeah, maybe if the $11.625 million Minister of Finance had passed the legislation, then instead of coming to chastise Coleman Burt, we would have had plenty more money to be able to fix everything, all that they want. That same money, instead of this administration having to inherit the debt left behind because they wanted to mamagai public servants and give them 14%, instead of Mr. Imbut having to go and beg, please, sir, can I have some more? Having to go and take loans and beg to find the money to pay the back pay for the increase that they gave. If his 11.625 Minister of Finance had passed the legislation, we could have captured all those billions, Dave. You're studying that, Dave, and then maybe this government would have had the money to also be able to give public servants another 14, instead of we only hearing them complaining, but they're still working on 2013 salaries. All of the debts, maybe our debt to the debt to GDP ratio wouldn't have been as high, because we're looking at least an additional 200 billion. What that is there? That's almost 4 years of budgets based on the levels that Coleman Burt has been operating at. All of that money could have been earning interest in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. So that when COVID hit, instead of $4,500 or $1,500 a month to be given in income support and income relief, or salary support and income relief, maybe the minister could have given $3,000 or $5,000 to persons. Dave, maybe if you all had captured that money instead of, and well, all of that thief have got piece of it too, but that's all right. At least we would have had a chunk. So when you want to come and talk your nonsense on your Sunday morning waste that time press conference and figure you have an aha moment, no, it's a oh no, Dave. I had two other things. I wanted to address some things that the misleader spoke about last night, but there's something else I need to touch on, right? Which is making its round in the public domain. Feel sitting in from an empirical standpoint, I need to address this. UNC wants answers on who got the $5 billion in contracts. The UNC wants to know who got $5 billion worth of contracts which were allegedly issued in violation of procurement law via excessive use of limited and non-competitive procurement methods. That's what UNC Shadow Finance Minister Dave Tanku called on Prime Minister Dr. Rowley and Finance Minister Coleman Burt to reveal yesterday, as he noted the findings of the procurement regulator Beverly Cahn's recently released report. The report came after the first year that public procurement legislation came into force in the public sector. Now, remember, the legislation was proclaimed in April last year, right? Who got the $5 billion in contracts and why? I challenged the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister to provide the truth on this matter. Tanku said at yesterday's UNC media briefing in Chaguanas. I call for an immediate and public investigation. I'm always calling for anyway. Into whose pockets this $5 billion has gone. I also call on the procurement regulator to provide a full list of the companies or individuals who received these contracts. We'll file a Freedom of Information request now. Yeah, you know, all love to do that. And when it is you all get blank, wasting the court's time. No wonder why the wheels of justice in this country grind so slow. Because you're all taking up, wasting the judge's time having to deal with these trivial matters when they should be dealing with serious matters of criminal nature. They have to be dealing with FY requests. Tanku raised questions on issues cited in 2 reports laid in Parliament last Friday: the Procurement Regulator's report and the Auditor General's special report on TNT's 2023 accounts. He added, "I thank God for the patriotic men and women of TNT who have decided that they will not tolerate the thuggery and bullying. Instead, a few have chosen to stand tall and to do their duty as independent office holders, unafraid of the circumstances." He goes on to say, where is it? He said the Procurement Regulator's report noted that in 1 year, contracts valued at just about $5 billion were awarded by government institutions through excessive use of limited and non-competitive procurement methods. Let me repeat that. Through excessive use of limited and non-competitive procurement methods. So select. That means that in 1 year, $5 billion in contracts were awarded, and that accounts for only those reported, without lawful tendering, without legitimate evaluations, without transparent assessments, and in open violation of procurement law. $5 billion is almost 10% of the country's annual budget. And addressing the procurement regulator, he said, "Tell us who got the contracts, if the work was done, who authorized the tender, who comprised the evaluation committee, who signed off on the process, who authorized the payment of the $5 billion, which state agencies involved. Was this money used to give contracts to gangs or buy muscle for elections?" he added. So I think I read enough there on that. So let me provide a little background. Yeah, that for some reason the media doesn't seem to be interested in finding out. Yeah, you just post the blazing headline and you put it out there for speculation. So we know this issue is making the rounds in the camp of the fully dones. So as somebody who is involved, who understands from the inside, right? You all heard me talk about the National Trust. So let me explain this issue and the challenges that state entities face when having to deal with issuing of contracts and tendering and so on, right? So when this procurement legislation came into place in April last year, remember, it was a new thing. So whereas before the legislation came into place, if a state agency, a ministry, or whatever have any work to do, whatever, they put out the tender, and persons who are so qualified, you submit a bid for the tender and so on. They have an evaluation process, and then you will be selected and you're awarded the contract and the like. You do the work. Under this new regulation, in the earlies, April last year, it meant that people, entities, businesses that have been doing business with the government for years, have been suppliers, contractors with the government for years, now found themselves in a situation where to continue to do work and to get contracts, to bid on contracts that the government has on offer, you have to go to the portal of the Office of the Procurement Regulator and you have to register. And then the Procurement Regulator's office had to do a pre-qualification exercise so that when a state entity now had work to be done and they need somebody to do it. Whereas before, they would put out the tender, it's advertising in the newspapers on their electronic platforms and so on. They put it out, and then when they get the bids, they now have to go to the Procurement Regulator's portal to see if this company that has put in a bid is registered with the Procurement Regulator, to see if they are pre-qualified. And if they are not, then they don't qualify. So we know to discard that. It don't make even sense including this person in the evaluation process because they don't meet the basic requirement, which is that they must be registered and pre-qualified by the Office of the Procurement Regulator. Never mind the fact that this person has been doing good work with the government for years, no bubble, no nothing. But this new legislation has made it difficult. The Procurement Regulator, Ms. Beverly Kahn, last year was doing a roadshow, going all around the country, trying to educate people, business owners in particular, who do business with the government, about the challenges with the legislation, the challenges with the procedure for being registered and pre-qualified and so on. I attended one. They had it in the Arima Community Center. And the Procurement Regulator herself, she was there. She said when she saw the system, she was confused. She's the Procurement Regulator and she's saying she's confused. She don't know what went on here. She said, I watched this thing, they explained it to me, but I confused. She realized that this thing was difficult, it was convoluted, right? And changes needed to be made. Because she's saying, if I am the Procurement Regulator, I confuse, people in my office confuse. What you're leaving for the ordinary man outside it when they come in this system now to register and pre-qualify? It's like a maze for them. So, based on that, we would see in the early days, Now, the state enterprises, they have work to do. They have work to do. The procurement, the proclamation of the Procurement Act didn't mean that work stopped. They had things that they had to do. So when this law came into place now, and you had this process, it started off slow. There were teething problems. So we heard in the first couple of months, you had close to 7,000 or 8,000 businesses who are accustomed doing work for the government, attempting to register and attempting to be pre-qualified. But out of the almost 8,000 who had registered, based on the pace at which the Office of the Procurement Regulator was approving and pre-qualifying businesses, it was about less than 1,000. So when these state enterprises now have work to do, what are they supposed to do? Sit down and twiddle their thumbs and wait for the Office of the Procurement Regulator to go through all 8,000, 9,000 applications, and as fast as they go through applications, more and more coming through. So you have an AC you need replaced. You have to go through tender. You put out the tender. You get 5 companies put in a bid. When you go on the website of the portal, of the 5 companies that put in a bid, only one has been registered and pre-qualified. What you're supposed to do? Meanwhile, the staff in the heat, pressure, you have to be sending them home every day because the AC not working. We have to go through tender process. We went through the tender process. The tendering period has closed off. We're now ready to assess the bids. And the only of the 5 companies that bid, only one of them so far have been registered and pre-qualified. So we can't do nothing with the other 4. Never mind that they qualify. Never mind they've done work with the government before. The new law says unless they registered and pre-qualified, can't do nothing with it. So we only have 1 that qualified. You have to go with that 1. Because we can't sit down and wait for the other 5 to get pre-qualified to make them eligible for us to do business with them. And in the meantime, the staff only complaining. Heat, pressure in the place. So what you have to do? You work with what you have. If 1 out of 5 qualified and this is an emergency, you have to give that person the contract. Simple as that. And in the same way, you have a repeat of this thing over and over taking place in a number of situations. So the Office of the Procurement Regulator and the Procurement Regulator now decide here what? Leave the pre-qualification, leave it up to the state enterprise. We will do the registration part, right? But so they will be registered and we would let the state entities know that when you put out a tender and you will do the pre-qualification based on your scope of works, right? So this is what you want. This is what you require of the bidders. So when the tenders come, you go through, you check on the system and see, okay, they're registered. Qualification hasn't taken place, so that is up to us. So let's go through. This is what we want, right? This is our rubrics here. And we have 5 people who bid, but only 3 out of the 5 of them satisfy the majority of the requirements that we have. So eliminate 2, and the next 3 is what we will go with. So we break it down now. We're looking at price, we're looking at experience, we're looking at the warranty that we get in, all of these different things, and then you narrow it down. So when you look at that, it might come down to 2. And then based on that, you choose. So when he talks about excessive limited use and sole select tender, it is not because these entities wanted to do that. It is because the law had a number of teething problems which they needed to circumvent in order to get stuff done. Because another thing people don't know about is something called PSIP, which is Public Sector Investment Program. When state entities, usually around March, April, you are required to send in your budget to your line ministry. And then your line ministry will submit it to the Ministry of Finance for consideration and inclusion in the national budget, which will be read next month. More often than not, these state enterprises do not get the amount of money that they request. I can tell you that the National Trust has been begging for a certain amount of money for years and has not been able to get it. So you get a subvention and you're supposed to make do with that. So you get a subvention for your operations and then they give you the PSIP, which is the money for certain projects and stuff that you're doing. But it's when the money comes, you have to work with it. So sometimes you request X amount of money, and then you have the validation exercise where the state entity, the line ministry, will go and sit down in the Twin Towers. At the Ministry of Finance, they will meet with the technocrats on the Ministry of Finance and they go through. Explain this, why you need this amount, why you need that amount, justify this, justify that. And at the end of the day, When the budget is read and you see how much you get, you had to make do with that amount of money. So let's be in September now. Almost every state is grappling, trying to see how much if they could get, because monies that they requested, if you didn't get it within a certain time frame, probably by the end of this week, forget that. You ain't getting it again. That money going back into the consolidated fund, and then you have to reapply. And next year, wait until next year to get that money. So all of that is taking place right now. So any works that you were supposed to do, even the time frame that you could now put in place with respect to how long a tender could run, you need to get the work done. Otherwise, once the money goes back to the consolidated fund, hard luck, partner. Ayo pancho. You have to wait till next year for that. And that causes problems. But these are the things that the media is not going to. So when they're making it seem as if, oh, they give out contracts so select, and they give out contract limited use, and they only engage 2 contractors and so on. You could only engage what you have. You still have thousands of companies that have not registered yet with the Office of the Procurement Regulator. And unless and until they do that, these state enterprises can't do no business with them. Then you have to look at the fact that it's not just, okay, we put out a tender, we have a job to do, and we're looking at just price alone. No, you have some, in some cases, and I'm coming back to the PSIP, where you might have a project that is in phases, and you requested a certain amount of money to do the project, but you only got enough money in this year's PSIP to cover one phase. So you award the contract, right? But it's a multi-phase project. So you award the contract for phase 1. To this, you did the assessment and you gave it to this contractor. So in the following year, when the money comes to do phase 2 and maybe phase 3, who are you going to go with? Not the same contractor? But yes, they're telling you go out and put out a tender. So you will get one contractor to do phase 1 when it's one big job that is broken down in phases. And ideally, it would make sense for the same contractor to do the whole job. But if you only got enough money in year 1 to do one phase, so you awarded that, and that was done. When the time comes up now, when you get the money to do phase 2 and 3, you're going to go out to tender to look for a different contractor to do phase 2 and 3. When the first contractor did excellent work and it makes sense to have them do the whole thing. So obviously in a case like that, you would go to sole select. The person, this contractor already started the job. They know what they're doing. They know what they're about. They've done work with us before. We know their competencies and so on. So you award it to them. But these things, they wouldn't come and talk about to tell you, but give the impression, $5 billion in contract given out in contravention of the procurement rules, and somehow is corruption and thievery and all of that. And they're happy to run with that. And Tanku now talking nonsense about the procurement regulator must provide them with a list of all the companies and who get the contract, and if it's contract for thuggery and gangs and all this conspiracy theories. When the answer is simple, the explanation is simple, it had nothing to do, I could tell you. Then with respect to the reporting now, that is another issue. Because if you're an entity that does a lot of contracts, you find yourself in a situation where every tender, every bid, right? Every job that you awarded to a contractor, you now have to go and do a report to say how many people bid, how many bids were assessed, and all of that, and what was the basis upon which this contractor would have been selected and all. These things take time, especially if you're an entity that does a lot of work. You need somebody dedicated to do that. And if it is the subvention that you're getting from the state is not even sufficient to cover your salaries, you have to hire somebody special now to come and sit down and do this work. Either that, or you find somebody in the organization who you could give them extra work to do all of this heavy lifting. But if you're going to do that, you need to give them an increase in salary. But if your subvention you're getting from the state is not sufficient to cover the existing salaries, how are you doing that? How are you hiring somebody dedicated to do these reports if you don't have the money to do it? So unless and until you get the money to be able to hire somebody, these reports would be outstanding. And I can tell you this is what is happening with a lot of state enterprises. Because you have a number of things to do and you have to hire people, whether it's on short-term contract, medium term, long term, a 1 year contract, a 6 months or 2 year, but you need to have the money to pay them to do this work. And if you don't have the money to hire them because you're raking and scraping and going paycheck to paycheck, subvention to subvention, then that has to go on the back burner and priority has to be given to doing the work. And hope that when you submit your budget for this year, you would include this person in the budget, you would justify it, and the ministry will give you the money. The Ministry of Finance will give you the money to hire this person, whose job it would be to sit down and write reports on every single contract that you give out, the particulars of which to be able to submit to the procurement regulator. But if you don't have the money to pay these people, that is your upper gum tree. So unless and until you could, the reports remain outstanding. But again, they wouldn't come and tell the population these things, but give you the impression that, look at what's happening. The public sector in shambles. They're not abiding by the procurement regulators' rules and so on because they want to thief. Trust me, it had nothing to do with no thieving. All right? Nothing to do with that. It's a perfectly logical explanation, as I've just given you, the challenges that this new legislation has presented to state entities. And I'm speaking here from an empirical standpoint. I know this is what happens. These are the challenges that are faced. But they're not interested in the truth. But it's already 8 o'clock, and I wanted to touch on, Winston Bachelor is asking, do PNM government ministers put in bids to get conflict of interest contracts? You want to know? Kamala says she put in a freedom of information request to find out how many ministers engaged in recusals. Right? She wants to know that. So ask her that question, Mr. Bachelor. You got how many PNM ministers who can't lay a brick getting government contracts in the millions? I'm going to ask you, what was the procurement process for awarding Krishna Lala the $1.2 billion contract for the Beaton wastewater treatment plant? He had no experience, none, in building a wastewater treatment plant, but he was able to get a contract over a company, Atlatech, an international company with over 58 years of experience. Mr. Bachelor, you have any comment on that? Mr. Bachelor, you have any comment on that? Who eat our food there? The $34 million that was given to Adolphus Daniel. Did Mr. Anil Roberts have any hand in that? Because we know Mr. Daniel was his father's friend. His father was Mr. Daniel's attorney. And he took Mr. Daniel to the $11.625 million minister to talk about live sport, Mr. Bachelor. And then after that, Soul Select, the same thing that Dave Tanku is against and condemning today. That was the process used to award the $34 million contract to Adolphus Daniel for live sport. No tender. And based on what we now hear coming out in the court case where the former board of the sports company is being sued, according to the former chairman, Sebastian Paddington, they were taking directives from the ministry. So they didn't have any direct input, right? They made no decisions. Directives came from the ministry, do X, Y, and Z, and they followed those directives because, as Mr. Paddington said, you cannot go against what the ministry says. So in those circumstances, please tell us, Mr. Bachelor, right? Did Anil Roberts recuse himself in respect of that? Seeing as how he took Adolphus Daniel to Mr. Hawaii, and Mr. Hawaii is on public record as having said that. So it's not me saying that. Hawaii said that. Did Anil Roberts recuse himself? Did he eat our food from that, Mr. Bachelor? All they wouldn't talk that. But you come in here with nonsense to talk about PNM ministers and contracts. 7701762. Not today, no. I don't have time for that. Not today. You need a whole day for yourself for me to deal with you. Nonsense. Supporters of wrongdoing. Rather than condemn the party that you support for the nonsense coming and say, well, who do more and who thief more and all of that. That making any sense to y'all? That's why the country can't go anywhere. That is why. So, let us see. One sec, caller. Let me just.
No problem, Dominic.
Yes. Hello, good morning.
Blessings, Dominic, and the PNM family. Let's have a prayer. Thank you, Father, for the Prime Minister and the government you have placed in this land for this day. God, Israel wanted a king like Saul, and they got this Saul. But Father was weeping and gnashing of teeth, Father. Santa Begwe, be careful what you're asking for. You do not want to get a Saul or a Pharaoh, because the tears we will cry if we are not careful. IMF will come, go knock at us, IMF will kick down the listen to what is being said, take notes and pray and ask God who to vote for. And that's out the way. Thank you. Ask a question now. You say money missing. You have proof of that? You have proof money missing? Where did Mr. General go? Who chased him? You don't care about the country. You care about the party. Because if you love your nation,
I don't know what's on there. Call me back. So, let me get this here. What is going on with this thing this morning? Let's see. Hello, good morning.
if I must say again.
Yes, go ahead.
The food is not ready for tomorrow, and but for your children. And cannot decide to hear me well, and hear the voice of God. Your clock is ticking, and every evil work and word you have spoken in this land will backfire into your very soul. The blood of every person is on you, and every eye will bow. Have no choice but to bow to Jesus Christ. Now, I'm last night, if I spent 2.5 hours praying for this nation. And what I say, see, I cannot see. Harmless playing a game, but when she gets what she gets, it will be fierce. You know, suddenly, destruction will come. PMO is there for a purpose. It was for COVID-19. It was for the oil from Venezuela and the gas to flow. And the UNC could not do that. It is not their portion. Do not play with God, Kamala. Do not play with the one true living God. You are skating at the precipice of no return. Don't be blessed. PNM family be blessed. See Lot become Laventil. I speak well over you. From the crown of your head to the soles of your feet, I bless you. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye later.
Thank you. 770-1763. So I have to jump off at 9 o'clock, folks. So keep it tight this morning. Thank you. Mr. Bachelor is saying you have to vote for the lesser of two evils. Who is the lesser? Who is the lesser? The one that I could tell you about the 2.6 billion, Mr. Bachelor, or the 6 billion that the US 6 billion we were losing? Who's the lesser? But you know, as I said before, for you all, less is more and more is less. Who's the lesser of the two? The one that is offering you a man on $1 million bail for fraud to be your next minister of energy? Or the one that is offering you a clean minister who has been working his backside off for the last 4 years, 3-4 years, to ensure Trinidad and Tobago's energy future? That all of the gas fields that will be coming on stream in 2027, most of it, or if not all of it, is as a result of his efforts and that of the current Prime Minister. None of the, and I keep saying, none of the tax concessions that Kamala Persad-Bissessar and her government gave to the energy sector reap any fruit for us. None. All the generous concessions they gave, which would see this state, the government, not receiving any income from some of these entities until between 2024 to 2027. Mr. Bachelor, who is the lesser of the two evils? Right? Who? Which one? the one who negotiated several gas deals, and the one who renegotiated the Atlantic LNG train contracts, or the one who negotiated one gas deal and ignored a letter from the Point Lisas Energy Association for 3 years between 2011 to 2014, resulting in 8 companies losing over $10 billion in revenue. Tell me, which one? Who is the lesser of the two evils? Can't be serious. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
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 Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Dominic?
Yeah, go ahead.
How are you going?
I am good, man.
How are you going, Dominic?
Very good. I'm here.
Thank you,
Go
Dominic.
ahead.
Well, this is not Brian. That is not Brian you call it.
No, I know, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Dominic.
Yes.
Don't give your breath on that so-called Winston Barcelona or Bachelor, whatever his name is. He's a diehard UNC troller.
I know.
And his modus operandi is when you don't agree with him, he just put his comments in loud chaps now, like he talking from the top of his voice.
Mm-hmm.
That is his modus operandi if he can't get away. So ignore that guy or she, whatever put that person is. But I'm like, it is simply amazing now that people are considering giving Canada processor and the UNC a chance like it, you know.
Yes.
And I ask myself, who is in the problems? And I thinking the thing that is not we alone having problems. Look what's going on in the United States of America right now between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. With all the allegations against Donald Trump and how he failed at that so-called debate last week. You know, this man still have a whole institution state in America. How can anybody vote for that man? You know?
Yes.
But I know the next bacchanal they want to make now is with the succession of Prime Minister Stuart Young.
Oh yeah.
They want to make a bacchanal that. You know what they go say now? They go say they have the older PNM heads, Penny Beckles. They have Foster Cummins. I couldn't Dr. Auditing, and then they go say he prefer the 1% because he choose the Chinese man over the African leaders. They go make a bacchanal Mr. No.
They already saying that. They already saying that.
Right. I'm not. And they're going to study PNM for them. And even some of your PNM supporters probably grumbling about it too. They're going to say, why is Stuart Young? Yeah. I have no problem. Mr. Young, because you come in China. This man was doing a lot of work behind the scenes. So it's either two things. Is PNM an African party or a national party?
National, but they're not saying that. They're not saying that.
Right?
Yeah, they ain't saying that.
I am confused. And then you have these other imps in this country want to gravitate toward what? Basil Pande's daughter? Change. You see the bill that show?
Yeah.
As far as I am concerned, that girl, to me, she's just another camera beside the business. With Basil Pandey as her namesake. That's how I see it. If you want change for exchange, she's a younger substitute of camera beside business that people want to go and vote for. And as far as I'm concerned, if she had the political guts, she would have entered showing in her hat in the by-election. Why she didn't show in her hat in the by-election? Dominic, you tell me why.
Yes.
But she want to form party. Oh, please. Right? And you see what's going on in Tobago right now? Tobagonians, what do they want? I see some of you want to go back and look up the government of Western Duke. Change for exchange, right? But they have issues with PNM. Or they're grumbling with party right now. But I want to go. They don't know you ever go there because I know you want to say things about going on today, right? But boy, this thing was Stuart Young. I don't know. African people or to the people in this country don't know what the man was right now. It's very difficult to run this country. Don't know how to please change that. It's not going to be going in this space. Have a good day.
You too, sir. Hello? Mr. Chance. Hello? Mr. Chance.
Yeah, good morning, Dominic.
Yes, sir. I am good, and yourself?
One day at a time. One day at a time. As I took the little walk this morning, so I said, let me try to get in and inside because Sunday I was not allowed to get in.
Right.
Now, I want to thank you again for another good session this morning. You know, and I want to repeat my call every time. What you hear here, very instructive, please share. Please have a discussion. The lady calls first, I like a prayer and, introductions and so on, talking to the people. We have to keep talking to the people. It does not make any sense. The information that you can hear, you keep it to yourself. You've got to share it, and the other persons will share it, and then it becomes part of the public opinion. And that is how we're going to get the success in assignment 2025.
Yes.
I just want to talk about two areas you spoke about. One, the comments made by Tanku. And I want to share this a bit I shared on another radio station. Do you know something? Do you know that those Sunday morning press conferences are not press conferences? They're the UNC talking to the UNC. Yes. You know who asked the questions? Yes, Procurement asking Tanku questions. I listen to them all the time. So could you imagine that? If the UNC could try to fool you like that, and they're not in government, what you doing is they're doing government. They're talking to themselves. They call it a Sunday press conference. Where's the press? Could who ask any question? Is it that the Tanku knew the questions and he just rattling them off? That's what was happening for the last 3 Sundays. Himself to himself. The second point I want to make is respect to the Auditor General. And I want to say this. I don't know if you saw this morning Guardian headline.
No.
The morning Guardian headline said Auditor General and Central Bank willing to meet to discuss the impasse. You hear that? So what that means, because I recall, I don't know if it was on this program, I mentioned that the same thing happened in the state of Missouri in the United States, where there was an error of $718 billion. How they handled it? Not by going to attorney and going to court and all of that. The agencies that were responsible met, like this, they meet to discuss this situation. It was an error. I know what happened in the end. They sorted out the error. And the Republican Auditor General said, if that had not been sorted out, the financial state of the state of Missouri would have been in question. And that is what it appears to me that the Auditor General and the team are trying to do. They're trying to question the finances of the government of Trinidad, and that has serious consequences internationally. And now it appears as though I don't know what is happening because I don't know whether that Guardian headline is thing, but it is. It's saying that they are willing to meet. It means as though they spoke to the central bank and they spoke to the Auditor General, who is on vacation. Right? So I think that those matters are very important.
Yep. And
I hope that this matter will be settled. Because once this matter is settled, it means that the international community will not have any concern. But my main contribution this morning has to do with the news about the revenue authority. And I'll tell you why. As a citizen, I am very happy when we have sources of revenue to run the country. Let me say that again. As a citizen, I am very happy when we explore sources of revenue to run the country. Because any country does not have a revenue stream, will have to find it somewhere else. And you have to knock on the door, and I tell your first caller, you have to lock down the door of the IMF. But there are consequences when you go to the IMF. Loss of jobs, loss of standard of living. So your country is very important in terms when it has a revenue stream. And so I am happy that this matter has reached the ultimate with respect to the revenue authority. And I'll tell you why as a citizen. I remember a gentleman who I know very well, and I speak with him from time to time, Professor Carl Theodore. He did a research in 2018 looking at the amount of money we have lost with respect to tax evasion. And he was one of the proponents of the introduction of the revenue authority. Do you know how much money he said we are losing? My people, I'll say it twice. He said, Professor Carl Theodore told us in 2018, we are losing between $5 and $10 billion from tax evasion. Do you hear that? And that is because we had a system of those operators was ineffective. But what has come up now is a revenue authority, which has been shown because Jamaica has it, Barbados has it, and Guyana has it, Canada, and it's up 60 countries all over the world have revenue authorities. And they have shown that they have increased their revenue stream. That's what I want as a citizen. Because once that happens, Mrs. will get a pension, all the families who have disabilities will get theirs, and so on, and all the grants will continue. The bill for education, $8 billion. The salary is $1.9 billion a month, which is $22.8 billion a year. No, that will be paid because we have a revenue stream. Imagine, as I said, they are losing between $5 and $10 billion in tax evasion. And the UNC has been against that all the time. What is it? Are they trying to protect crooks, bandits, and kleptocrats? Because the MSA told us that they are all kleptocrats. They seem as though they are all in one stream. So I'm happy, I'm very happy about that. And as the Minister of Finance said, he's going to move swiftly to implement the revenue authority, which in my view is going to do a lot for the revenues of Trinidad and Tobago and it's impact on every citizen, all of you. There are a lot of people who are not interested in this talk, but that money coming in there will impact on the daily paid wherever you are. And secondly, let me just say this as I leave. The second thing I'm very happy about is the property tax. What has happened with the property tax? By the way, Dominic, I sent you an interview with Brian Manning and the property tax.
Yes.
Have you seen it? Have you listened to it as yet?
Not as yet, but I will, and I'll play it here.
Right, lovely. I tell you, it is very instructive, very, very instructive. But I'm happy about that because what I understand is that the people have ignored all the propaganda and old talk from the UNC about property tax, and they're turning up in the thousands to pay the property tax. My people, do you know how many residential properties we have in Trinidad and Tobago? Why the government went at the residential first? We have 400,000 residential properties in this country. Yeah? 400. And by the way, let me tell you something. You know, say the African people suffering and be in trouble. Helen Drayton told us, you know who owns 41% of those properties? African people. Helen Drayton told us that 41% of those residential properties in the country are owned by people of African descent. Right? So let me come back on track. So I am happy about that property tax because that property tax will bring to us another between $300 and $400 million revenue stream again. And when I add that to the fact that this year, Heritage told us that we had a profit of $1.48 billion. I'm happy because I see the Heritage putting money into the Treasury, which is another revenue stream. And they have told us in the last 5 years, 2018 to 2023, they have contributed $8.2 billion to the Treasury. As a citizen, I'm happy about that because that tells me there's money to run the country because we need money to run the country. There's no tree there. There's just money in a hole. You know, the Treasury does not have a big vault with money into the heaven. How much will we need? You open it and you go and take it up. And that has been reinforced because I have a very good friend, you know, who was a former controller of accounts. And he makes that point. And Dr. Ollie told us already that there are governments in this country where every morning they have to call the people and find out if they have money. Because they can't write checks if they have money. Because the check will bounce and the government will be embarrassed. So you need money to run the country. So as a citizen, I am very, very pleased with the trend that is taking place, particularly with revenue stream. In the final analysis, what we will find ourselves in a position that our economy will grow and we'll have a better standard of living. As I leave, let me tell you at this stage, I told you before and I'll say it again, we are ranked number 60 in the Human Development Index out of 193 countries. That means we are in a very high standard of living category. You might not believe it because you see yourself, you know, in Trinidad and Tobago, you look at yourself alone. That has been identified this year by the United Nations. We are still there. Could you imagine what will happen if we continue on that growth, we are going to go further up the ladder from 60 and upper direction. So I want to encourage all of us to pay attention to these things, because these things are very important. Ignore all these little flirtations coming out of the opposition leader. Today, the news is that she announced that she wants international people to come to follow the polls. You understand? That's big news headline today. Right? She wants to get international observers and all these flirtations. Focus on what the facts are. You need money to run the country. Look at what is happening with this government. They are trying to create a revenue stream. The big one coming forward is from 2026, 2027. The 8.4 trillion cubic feet of gas will be available to us for the next 30 years. Because the contract is for the next 8.4. When you add Coquina, Mannequin, Manatee, and Dragon. And of course, you have the others that Dominic spoke about. 8.4 trillion cubic feet of that. Yeah. You know what that will do for us? That will do for Granny and Nanny and Uncle and Nene and everybody. Their standard of living and the quality of life. Better health care, better education, more jobs and employment. Those are the things we want to put forward to you. And that is, I want to thank you again, Dominic, for the time. I perhaps overstepped my time because I was there on Sunday and I wanted to share these two things.
No problem.
Thank you very much for the time, Dominic. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Hello, good morning.
Hello, morning.
Yes, sir. Morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Romain. Good morning to the listeners, callers,
Greetings.
and viewers. Another segment of facts and stubborn things. Dominic, I want to touch on 2 points, right? The first one is, why would the opposition leader of this country, of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, will try to tarnish the character and the image of this country by stating what is stated in Parliament last Friday? You see, this is what they want their supporters to believe, right? With this ETA in the UK commencing in January next year. Mm-hmm. You want to create a whole banter that the European Union want to blacklist Trinidad and Tobago. So the other countries in the world that getting that same thing, are they being blacklisted too? Because it goes to show that the opposition leader in this country, she is very desperate and she is doing all things possible to try to hoodwink not the whole population, people who are soft-headed, who will buy into the foolishness and the rest. Hello?
Yeah, Rick, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, and it goes to show, so that is how the UNC is. And they will do anything possible to get back into office. But that and a pink jackass won't happen. You understand? The next thing is, Dominic, what is a shadow minister? I want somebody to tell me what is a shadow minister. First time in my life in the country of Trinidad and Tobago, I hear it have shadow minister. What is a shadow minister? No, I want somebody to answer me that question. Because how could you be a shadow minister and in the opposition? I'm trying to understand something. Right? You telling me shadow minister of finance. Look who you put in as minister of finance. Who have a lot of questions to answer with alleged gun racketeering in South Trinidad involving prominent businessmen. It is alleged, not me say so. Right? I didn't say it. It's out there. To run as minister of finance. You have a minister, a MP, opposition MP, who won $1 million fraud to run for minister of energy. You have a opposition MP who involved with criminal gunmen, it is alleged, to run for minister of local government.
You have a opposition MP who have a lot of questions to answer from Bartaya Saria to run for Attorney General. You have this one from W. O'Meara, who was the Minister of Sports, and Roberts, to run for Minister of Sports again, to get what Allied Sport episode 2. This is the thing people have to understand in this country. These people are not fit and not integrity. They have no integrity, sorry. They have no respect. They have no proper etiquette in this country to run for governance. Not one of those opposition MPs have no credibility. None. From the leader go right down. And I must go and stain my hand to vote for audit to put this country into dispute the next 5 years. After audit maligning the country for the last 9 God-given years. Audit say all kind of thing about this country called Trinidad and Tobago, and especially the African people in this country. And it's the same African people that they want them to come out and vote for them. So for them to be, UNC cannot win election in this country without the vote of the African population. And they know that. It's the same set of African people, all they want to malign, I want to call all kind of nasty and derogatory names on social media. It's the same set of people, all they want to come out and vote for when they come 2025. Well, if African people don't open their eye now and don't take God out of the thoughts and power these people in this country, according to Sister Jenny, we are going to become second-class citizens in this country. And you see the UNC opposition areas or UNC control areas, they will feel that they are superior and they could do and say and please and as they please and as they want. You understand? People, we cannot be wasting the time every morning. Dominic can't be wasting the time. Jenny can't be wasting her time. Rhoda Barrett, John and John, Sharon, Google, all the PNM activists on social media and all about. Forget about his social media officer. He's a persona non grata in my book. Right? We can't wait on he. We have to take the bull by its horn. We have to get the information out there to the population. And thanks to Mr. Chance, who is the principal of facts. He has come every time when he get the opportunity to give us the correct and pertinent information. Listen to Mr. Chance, Mr. Yates, Barataria, Rowley Jr., all these people, the Carrols, these people giving all the information. And if we want to sit down on the lawyers and say, hey, me, I don't want to vote, I don't like Rowley, and me like Stuart Young, and me like this one, and me like that, about who you like. It's all about getting the country on the footing for a better and a brighter tomorrow. You understand? And my take is, we have to come together. You see, going forward, the UNC going at all stops. Right? They will do anything. If it's to lie, as they are accustomed doing with the leader, opposition leader, she are accustomed lying. Imagine you put a woman who was a former prime minister. For 9 years, you sat in opposition. And not one day in that 9 years that you support the government in anything that is beneficial to the country. It's when certain things, when they're back against the wall, and the population decide to come down on the backside, or they decide, well, all right, well, they go thing, and they want to do it now, or they go on social media and say, you see, we support the government in X, Y, and Z. Why you all waiting until when the population started giving some level job? Or they want to come and pretend that all they want to be in support of the government. But they're clearly not about country, or they're not about country, or they're about party. You understand? People, 2025 on the horizon. Take heed from all these persons who I just mentioned. We are out here to, it's a battle, not about flesh, but about spiritual and wickedness in high places, because these people going very nasty come next year. You know, they're going to try all tricks and trade in the book to try to influence people, but they try to influence me and right-thinking citizens. But my problem is, Dominic, you see the young people, that 18, that generation who was 10 years back then, and who going to vote for the first time in 2025, you see that gap, that 18 to 29 age bracket, we had to get a hold of them. We had to get a hold of them because right now they are being influenced by the opposition forces to get them a pie in the sky dream. Right? And we had to really pull them. And we had to pull them before they get lost in the wilderness under these so-called kleptomaniacs. Right? But people, according to Jenny, the mission on 2025, stay focused, and tomorrow, for a brighter tomorrow, we will say, great is the P&M. Great is the P&M. Great is the P&M, and we will, must, shall, and succeed. Dominic, good program. Dr. Listening.
Thank you, sir. Hello, good morning.
Dominic,
Lord Father.
what's going on?
All is well. Let me hear you back now.
Look here, boy.
Let me hear you back now.
Let me say good morning to my sister. She listened to the program and she job now.
Mm-hmm.
She said she want to come home for Christmas. She will get a medal for share when she come in.
I will
she
do that.
Meet you.
Leave it there, what's your back now? Go ahead.
Sunday I heard Eric telling you he was to send something for you. Some bacchanal that took place in Tokum and Lanella with Pitbull and them.
Mm-hmm.
But he's saying how he didn't post it up. Dominic, he didn't post it up. But he want me to come on your program and call people names. So what happened? He afraid to post it up, Eric? You afraid? Dominic, I will leave it here for now.
Thank you, sir. Jenny. Jenny.
You hear me?
Yeah. Oh, Lord. Eric, you don't need to respond till you there.
Morning, Dominic. Morning to all the callers.
Morning.
I was just listening to the last call and I'll just touch on that quickly before I really want to go to my substantive issue. And he's correct, right? When Dr. Eric Williams founded the People's National Movement in 1956, the reason why he had the conversation with the Calstran minority and all the issues you were having, because he understands a party needs to be national. That is why he will have said no matter Africa, no matter China, India, Syria, and all that. Because, if we held on to those things, especially when he was trying to build this nation, coming out independence and that kind of thing, that we will reach anywhere. So the party is a national party. But people have labeled it an African party because the UNC is an Indian party. History will show that the UNC, coming from DLP, comes straight on to UNC, is an Indian party. And it's usually a Hindu-based party. History will have said that. So they want to tie the PNM into this thing in the African party. But the PNM has only be the only national party. But let's say we take the argument, right, that PNM is an African party. Then what is the issue people having if it is true that Minister Stuart Young is the person who it is looking to be like the next political leader of the PNM? Then people should be happy, because then it will show that the PNM, based on what they say, is not an African party, but a national party. So it seems to me there's some type of cognitive dissonance for how people think and react to things. Right? You can't say PNM is an African party. And when you see a person who is of another ethnic group acting as the prime minister, or having problems with that.
Yeah, so people need to sort out their sort outs, right? This situation with the TTRA and PSA having lost in the Privy Council, I'm going to give a very, I'm going to give an opinion here that may not go down well with others, but it's an opinion I'm giving, one I'm entitled to do. I've been a PSA member for years. I have been trained in industrial relations and labor studies. I've served, the only area I have not served is an executive in the PSA. But in terms of representation for workers in my section, and even out of other people's section, I have earned my experience there, right? So I can give this opinion. I think that this was the plan all along with the PSA to take this matter to the Privy Council, knowing they're going to lose. Because I think it ties into the election in 2025. And how does it tie in? Because we are seeing now moves by Leroy Baptiste, when he would have said on Labor Day that the PNM is his enemy. And he's not going to treat the PNM to deal with negotiation for public officers. He's going to deal and talk one time with the UNC. So I think this has been in the making, you know, because I see Watson Solomon Juke make a video, and I could cut down that video very quickly, because it was Watson Solomon Juke who bring Leroy Baptiste into the PSA. When he had a decision to make, either give up the presidency of the PSA, when he won the THA election, he made a decision to bring a man from Wassa, who nobody voted for, and put him in the PSA as the president. So he's responsible for Leroy Baptiste being there. So he cannot now say nobody voted for Leroy Baptiste, because we have been saying that all the time. Another thing he said, he would have fought in 4 months to get the government to back down for the TTRA. I thought a hogwash. In 2010, Comrade Joe Field was made a temporary senator, and his job was to go in the parliament to bring the sentiments of the PSA with regards to how they feel about the TTRA. But Mr. Manning called early elections, and nothing happened. In 2017, so we count in 2010 to 17, that's 7 years, the PSA did nothing. The PNM brought it back to the parliament and passed it with a simple majority, with votes from the opposition to it. They passed it with a simple majority. Anybody could have taken that to court, but I'm talking about the 7 years it was there, PSA did nothing. The job of the PSA, based on our constitution, is to see about the welfare, the interests, and the rights of the workers and the members of the PSA. To meet and treat with all social partners in an amicable way, coming right back to the fairness and treatment of workers. PSA failed to do that. So he take Julie Roberts, take this matter, so he's the one who take it to the Privy Council. He had an opportunity to stick with the government and use moral suasion. I know what these moral suasion could have been, Comrade oh Lord, Romain and all who listening. If the government is determined to have the TTRA, because you can't tell a government how to collect the taxes. Just the same way you cannot tell a government they cannot restructure one of their departments or agency or ministry because they see a need to bring it to the next level. You can't stop them with that. That's why I had the retrenchment benefit act and all that. You know what was the position the PSA should have taken? Go and sit with the authorities and said, listen, if you're determined to have this authority, all my members must be guaranteed that when they go across, their interests and rights and all they enjoy in the public service will not be impacted. That who wants to leave, that the visa packages be the best that they can get. Who wants to go out in the wider public service, they get the best advice to which areas they should go, and guaranteed that they will be taken into those positions if they choose to do that. But not only that, to make sure that the PSA remains a recognized majority union under this new authority. That is what a responsible union was supposed to be doing. Because you can't fight the government in forming a TTRA. Because we are not the only country has that. They always talk about Singapore. And when we know Singapore had an authority since 1992 collecting taxes. Canada has one, the UK has one, South Africa has one. I think Kenya has one. So this is not a new concept. But everybody is playing politics and look at the lawyers, Anna Ramlogan, a UNC lawyer. So I'm asking this question. Was this plan devised long time? And I'll tell you why I'm asking and what the plan is. I am asking that what the plan. Because they know very well they go lost into the Privy Council. Train up liberties to take it to the local courts. The local courts agree with the government. Take it to the Privy Council. When they know they're going to lose the case. And what will happen now? People will feel so disenfranchised, public officers, that it will impact on the 2025 election. But I want to put the liberties on notice. And I want to put public officers or PSA members on notice. You can't put this on the PNM doorstep no more. This is directly on the PSA liberties and Watson Solomon Group, what has happened. Because the custom officers who just carry gun and things, they are still public officers. They're under Ministry of National Security. How come they were able to do that for them? Why not do it for the clerks and the other workers in custom and BIR? Why PSA didn't make sure that those officers who are protected, they did nothing for 7 years? Leroy Baptiste was the advisor to Watson Solomon Duke. They did nothing. So I am saying, this is my opinion, this was a calculated plot to make public officers feel the government wicked and bad and evil. PSA failed to protect all your public officers who are members and by extension, all public officers. They fail. He wouldn't go back in the industrial court in front the special tribunal and fight and say 4% not enough. No, he didn't do that. He take a law, a regulation by the Civil Service Act and carry for judicial review in the High Court, just as they did with the TTRA bill. Knowing that coming out of the High Court, all the High Courts would have said in this situation that the special tribunal can make it 10 years because only one period in front of them, 1 5 year, 0 the 1 5 year full. How come everybody saying going back yet? But he talking when he going to negotiate with the opposition. Everybody says that disgrace. And the vengeance and Moko are calling out your ancestors on you because you're wicked. All your stuff of public officers who are PSA members since Drew came in office, and you continue, you're worse than Drew. You cannot lay this at the feet of the People's National Movement. This situation that happened here with the Privy Council is to be laid at the feet of the PSA. Because the liberties fail and Watson Group failed to protect the workers of the Iran customs. And simply because they know they could not stop this government from saying they want to collect the money this way. But what they could have done is make sure that the PSA remain the recognized majority union, meaning that they continue to represent those workers under the TTRA. They didn't do that because everybody's playing politics. And I am saying, don't be surprised if you see Liberty's name show up in a Rima Wonderland constituency on behalf of the UNC. Don't be surprised if all of those senior liberties turn up in the parliament as a independent senator, because all about politics, nothing to do with members. This morning, I'm calling this morning because we are supposed to have an election in December. Nothing has been put in place for us to have an election committee up to start to deal with it. The timeline has gone for that, so it means we're not having no election this year. But we have an opportunity to have election by next year, March, I think. I am calling on Edward Lafoe, the head of the trade union, oh gosh, we call it, he's the head of the trade union, the register of trade unions, Mr. Edward Lafoe. Come and take control of the PSA under the trade union and you have that authority come and take control of the PSA to make sure that we have an election for next year, March, Mr. LaFood. Come out your office and do your work. Unless you do that, we'll be doomed. And the public service will continue to be eroded. Not because the government wicked and bad, but because the PSA has gone to court, the Privy Council, and made sure it is in law now that the government did not do anything unconstitutional. So the government could choose in the morning, if they want to say they're going to build a next prison and hire one prison officer, because it will not be unconstitutional. That is what the Batista and them did. So again, I'm saying, Edward Lafu, the only chance we have, because negotiations is still possible in the sense that only a part of that that legislation has been, I think, is proclaimed. I don't know if it's the right way, but there are certain aspects of it that still has not been done. So it means that the Public Service Association still has an opportunity, not to stop the TTRA, but the thing that I now spoke about, to make sure that once the PSA get the 50% plus one, remain the recognized majority union under this new authority. To make sure that the people who decide that they're taking a step, they get a proper package. To make sure those who want to remain under the entity, that they come across with the same terms and conditions and benefits and rights that they enjoy right now where they is in the public service. Those are the things that PSA is supposed to be going to deal with, but no, they blame politics. So don't blame the PNM for this, don't blame Dr. Ronnie for this, blame Leroy Batiste and Watson Solomon for what has happened. Not the formula TTRA, but the fact that workers may be disadvantaged or disenfranchised because the union failed to protect them based on our constitution. Thank you, Dominic. Have a blessing on everybody.
Thank you, Jen. Right. So I could probably take one more quick one. For 5 minutes left, 7701763. Alicia Almonde Roche says, I never knew PNM opposition MPs were shadow ministers. You see, when that's what happens when you have a party of persons who are desperate to be in government, and after not having tasted government for almost 10 years, they pretending to be ministers and raising a certain nonsensical issues that has no substance and no basis whatsoever. Yeah, near set of foolishness. But the leader of the opposition last night came back with her rhetoric and her nonsense about COVID. I mean, I don't understand. It's been almost 2 years since we've, well, anyway, I'm going to take this one quickly. Hello, good morning. Get this one quick then. Hello, good morning. Hello.
Hey, Dominic, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Hey, Dominic, just on your topic this morning concerning the wannabe finance minister. Yes, no. I can't say he's a shadow finance minister. He's a wannabe. So because if he claims to be an economist, yeah, he talk real rubbish, things that don't make sense. One of the things I am saying, talking about, and other than the things that he said making sense, but some of the things that he spoke about points to them. He talked about the tax evasion. And the tax evasion, there's a man on $1 billion before for tax evasion. And sometimes it makes you wonder that, if these people them organize and plan and know what it and do research and know the topic they're going to talk about. Because he's speaking about the Auditor General, right? And some of the things he's talking about, that is not the concern about Auditor General. Auditor General, a matter of fact, an auditor. An auditor in whole ensures that the taxes are up to date. That's the rule of the state, what they do. Auditors do not generate accounts. So my take in this whole thing is that if the auditor has an amendment to accounts generated by the Ministry of Finance and the Treasury for the auditor to go over, why is the auditor refusing to accept any amendment? Even though if it's late, if I'm an auditor, I still want to see it, But by watching it, it doesn't mean that I am going to have to say that I'm going to include it or not include it. I have to see it first to understand the problem and the issue and to ensure that it's correct, so I could have an idea of what the taxes that I am going to declare and ensure that it's up to date. The Auditor General failed to do these things. The Auditor General continues to talk in the public on matters of serious consequences, saying things and it's not true. The Auditor General is a public servant and holds a high office and has to be more careful on what she says and what she does. And to me, she has put herself in a corner. And every time she tries to speak to justify what she did, she makes things worse. And it tells me that she cannot work with the other people, the other arms of the public service, which is the Ministry of Finance and the Treasury. Sending junior officers to get serious documents without outlining where and what you're looking at, because no auditor will go into any company and just pick and just go through everything that the company has. There are certain things in a company that an Auditor General does not need to do. The Auditor General deals with basically the financial part of things, but that sales and marketing and that all these other things. But if you want to add back it into Jonathan's sense, you ask for invoices, which will be handed over to you from the certain departments, right? And you go through for these invoices that I am looking for, because it doesn't add up with the final figure on the accounting side. Because they always know, I will tell people that in all companies, the sales department and the accounting department doesn't really see eye to eye, because the accounting section does not see investment. So you put that $300,000, yes, they'll see that. And in the sales, when you collect back everything, you end up with about $450,000. But they invest that, and they give that, accountants want to see everything. How you're making that money, how it is. So in a boardroom, when you sit down, and if you're on sales or you're on the other side, you'll always have a bickering between these two people. But when an auditor comes into your company to audit your book, they ask for certain things and you provide that for them. They don't come and they want to see what marketing is doing, and they want to see how we think and how much money you think and why you spend, and asking you why you spending that money. And basically that's what she was doing, She was getting involved in things that she doesn't concern her. She was making serious acquisitions about the electronic transactions, right? And if she wanted to see the bills and those things that come up in electronic transactions, she's supposed to take after that and they'll have it ready for us. When she comes, they'll give it to her. Or even though she sent a letter saying, I'm sending XYZ to the Treasury, they say, because don't make next term they can hurry to go into the Treasury and go into thing and access certain documents. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
You have to have some clearance to go and see these things. So the Auditor General seems to be non-cooperative, and she cannot work alongside the other side of the public service to ensure that the country business is being run. She can't decide that she's not going to accept any reports that has concern the auditing of the country. I'm not accepting that. That is the first word. And then she gave reasons why she's not accepting it. And then when the reason she gave it that doesn't really add up and make any sense anyhow, she went for a lawyer. And that lawyer she went and did is a man who was a former AG and is before the court for corruption. That's the only person that this woman could find to defend her. And I still can't understand why you need a lawyer to defend you on your work if you know what you did was right. You have no problem with that. All you just do is put out in a report. Like all other Auditor General just do. They had a problem, they didn't get this fixed, they didn't get the checks and balances for this year, they didn't get for that ministry, they didn't get for that, they put that in a report. And when they put that in a report, the opposition take and fully report and talk about it in Parliament. And the government will have to answer why they didn't send it and why they didn't do that. That is not the job of an Auditor General. Simple. So I don't know where they're fighting up with people with that kind of nonsense. I already see that they will have to move her. She will have to be moved. And she has an option. It's either she take her package and ride out into the sunset and become a UNC politician, or she moved to another ministry that she would not be making these kind of confusion and cause back and anyone just go for the rest of the time until she retires. But according to the business of Trinidad and Tobago, and it has nothing to do with PNM and UNC, the business of Trinidad and Tobago, we have to run our country. It's basic common sense. This lady has fall down on the job real bad. And she has shown to the public who's listening and who's taking careful notes that something is wrong with her. She seems to be using politics in her work. She's involved in the politics into her job and causing confusion. And we can't have that. I have no problem with the lady. I know she's a professional. She has been in that auditing pool for a good while and she knows her job. But however, she has shown that she's a politician and she's politicking with the job, and we cannot have that. Full stop. So somehow they have to do up a report, deal with it, and send it to the president, and let the president decide. But in the meantime, I was also looking at the light sport report and the auditor from the private company, Mr. Dwayne Rodriguez Sears, and the line of questioning put to him and how he answered it. Dwayne was very careful when asked certain questions, and if he thinks that if this was supposed to be done and that was supposed to be done in terms of the actual running of life sport, Dwayne couldn't give a direct answer because he doesn't know about those things. All Dwayne was only concerned is about the auditing part, which boils right back down to the taxes. So how much money was put into life sport in this program and how much money was put there? And if Dwayne feels that it was not supposed to be there, that is not Dwayne's business. He's just on his phone and his phone. That is auditors and them under him. When they do and bring back the report to them and they compile the report and hand it back. They have that work to do. And I have said, and I compare the two of them, because this lady been working in one of these companies like that, because those are international companies. Should have been fired for it. You would have heard any papers that should have been tendered her resignation or some sort of thing. You cannot come out. One time you put the company in that kind of problem, you get rid of it. So the same must be applied, because under the public service and the private sector, there are two different ways to deal with things. And we have to change our mindset. We cannot do that. You're a professional. This lady is a professional in what she does. And she's showing that she's party politicking with Trinidad and Tobago business. We don't have more to say, but thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Right, so folks, it's 9:06. Thank you all so much for joining me this morning. So much more to talk about. I said I needed to comment on the opposition leader's contribution last night, but it was really rubbish. She come back with this COVID nonsense, and I told you all on Sunday that she is setting the environment to come and make a case for a class action suit against the government, because last night she referenced several lawsuits that are taking place in different parts of the world and so on with respect to COVID and Nicola, I could give you 2 minutes because I had to jump out. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Hi, good morning, Dominic. How are you?
I am good.
Okay, I'm a first time caller.
Welcome.
couple weeks ago, you were dealing with lawyer fees.
Yes.
Okay. I sent you. You said you weren't able to get the information. You couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Okay. I sent you. I have the information. I sent it to you on WhatsApp at this number.
Okay.
Right. My name is Neil Russell. You can look under that name.
All right. Will do.
I sent you 3 articles and a news and a TV report. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, I see it. I see it.
Will.
I see it. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool.
Yes. All right. Nicely. Great. So I'll look into that. And let's see. Excellent. Thank you so much, Neil. I will treat with it. Right. So we'll chat again on Thursday, and I will deal with the opposition leader's contribution last night. Right? As I told you all, she's looking to set the stage for possible class action suit. Right? And she has Mr. Ramlogan who loves to do these kind of things. So listen out for it when they start calling for citizens who think that they have some sort of medical issue because of the vaccine she was talking about last night. People calling her and telling her about, asking her how come so many young people just falling down and dying and all of that. But yet still you're 72 years old. You took the vaccine and you took booster, and you're still around. So you stronger than these young people who just fall. And look at the conspiracy theories that this woman is pushing. There are people in this country who want to buy into that. And she is looking to give them the platform to talk that nonsense. So, as if they don't know what autopsy is, and I don't know of any big number of young people who just fallen by the wayside, but she came at that last night, people calling her and asking her about that. You're a doctor? Why are they calling you to ask you about that? But this is the nonsense that she's talking about, and she's supposed to be the Prime Minister in waiting. So all these lawsuits that she cited, understand what she's saying. And she did in fact say it last night, to sue their tail. So they want to take more money from the treasury. So the government have money, she telling the government broke. She come last night and know the government broke. And she expects the deficit to be $15 billion. And she's waiting for the budget and so on. The government broke. You come in to tell people the government broke, but advocated for citizens to come and sue the state for, as you call it, fake vaccines. Right? So if they broke, where they get any money from? So the money that's supposed to be used to fix schools and build more hospital and open the Cuba hospital and buy bed and so on, you want to take that and give it to people in lawsuits for fake vaccines. Folks, we will talk about that on Tuesday and other things. All right? Let me delve into because this information that Neil sent me here, as well as the article that Mr. Chance mentioned with respect to the Auditor General and the Central Bank Governor, but I'm sure that things will transpire between now and Thursday. Yes? So we will talk again on Thursday. Thank you all so much. Enjoy your day. Make it a productive one. Keep safe on the black carpet. And we will chat. Yes? So we will chat again on Thursday.